So we'll start with a half butterfly. This will target our hamstrings. So the muscles, these are your hamstrings, the back of the thigh there. And you can support your forearms, forehead. You could sit on something. You could support your left knee with a block or a bolster or blanket. But remember that it's not important to support yourself unless you don't feel safe for some reason or it feels too intense. Otherwise, just allow the posture to gently stretch or stress the back of the thigh here. Now we're also preparing the spine here. So there probably will be a gentle stretch back here as well, but we'll target the spine more directly with the second half of the set. All right, so let's go ahead and come up and we will switch sides. So left leg is straight, right foot's the inside of the thigh. And again, the main stretch should be in the back of the thigh. As always, we also want to feel safe. We want to feel comfortable enough to hold it, and we want to feel the stretch in the back of the thigh. Okay, so we'll come on up. And now we do both legs straight. And this is the caterpillar. And hopefully what you can feel is as you come forward, the stretch is really no longer back here. All right, especially if you're not doing this, which some people try and do when I teach live. I see people doing that all the time. So again, all I can do, I can't see you, I can't really do anything. And even when I'm in person and I see people doing that, I don't go over to them and tell them not to do it. My approach is just education. My suggestion is don't do that. You greatly increase your chance of injury in your spine. It might feel good in the moment. There's a lot of things that feel good in the moment that aren't good for us longer term, okay? Chocolate cake or getting drunk or doing certain behaviors might feel really good in the moment, but long term, really not good for us, okay? And there's no judgment. I'm not saying you shouldn't do any of those things or whatever, but we just know from facts, things like drinking alcohol, it's just not good for our health, okay? Sugar, it's not good for our health. So we can do these things, and if we enjoy them, great. But we can't kid ourselves about, oh, I'm doing something good for me. Really, you're not. Okay, so same here. If I make this choice, oh, I'm going to pull myself down because it feels really good right now, well, that is putting unnecessary stress on your spine, which is what we are trying to stress. But I think all of you have heard me say before, stress is like fire or like any other force of nature. In the right amount at the right time, perfect, good. Fire can cook your dinner. Fire can keep you warm, right? If it's controlled, if it's in the right amount, it's life-saving, okay? But what about too much? What about a fire that's burning down the forest that you're in, right? That's not a good thing. What about a fire that's burning down your house instead of cooking your food? Not a good thing. So same here. We might do this. Oh, this feels so good. I'm going to ignore the teacher and just do this because it feels good. Well, you're putting too much stress on your spine, and it probably will not create an injury today. You'll get away with it, so to speak. But most people that do that, they get in the habit of doing that. And it's the habit that's going to create the problem. Okay, so both good and bad habits. In yoga, these are called samskaras. All right, so we get in a good habit, and then that's going to make us feel better and better and better because we are doing it regularly. That's how yoga works. Yoga doesn't really, you might go to one random yoga class and feel a bit better. I'm not saying that that can't happen, but that's not really how yoga is designed to work. It really is designed to work with a regular intervals, right? So several times a week generally is what's going to produce the best results. All right, let's go ahead and unwind onto the back. Just relax for about 30 seconds. So whether we are creating good effects or bad effects, all right, again, if I were to get wasted drunk every night, does anybody really honestly believe in their right mind that that's going to be good for my health long term? That that's even going to be sustainable? Okay, does anybody really believe that? So, again, in moderation, little bits of, something we enjoy. I do enjoy beer, actually. And so when I go out about once a week, I enjoy a beer in a social setting with friends, and I enjoy it. But I'm not kidding myself and saying, oh, I'm doing something good for me, doing something good for my health. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it, okay? And there is some downside risk. So when we do these postures, again, there really isn't that much of an upside to pulling yourself down, other than the slight amount of pleasure you might get from that. I don't think it's worth the risk, because honestly, the risk there is greater than the risk of, say, having a beer once a week or something like that. Okay, let's bring our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze and shake it out. So again, both in the upside and the downside, it's habits really that tend to have the biggest impact. If I eat healthy every day, I'm going to see my health progress in one way, if I take care of myself, if I have a healthy lifestyle. But if I'm making poor choices every day, then that again is going to show up. And that's going to be much more powerful than trying to do one thing healthy once a week and then forgetting it the rest of the time. All right, let's come up to seated so you can hinge up, and then we'll do the half dragonfly next. So legs are wide, and what we'd like to do here is fold over the left leg. I am not mirroring. And what we want to feel is a stretch here. Okay, you may feel it here as well. That's the kind of setup for the second half of the posture. That's why I chose this posture, not banana pose, for instance. But we do want to feel it here mostly. So if you don't, you can roll or stack the right shoulder over the left until you feel that stretch. So for me, it's right about here that I start to feel it. Now, again, it might seem like I'm contradicting myself because I'm asking you to hold your foot now, and a moment ago I was saying don't do that. But there's no contradiction. I'm not telling you pull yourself down over this leg. All right, I'm asking you basically to hold yourself in place. So I don't know if you can see, but my arms are relaxed, okay? This is just a little bit of an aid to help me roll that shoulder back and keep me in position. I am not aggressively drawing myself down. However, I'll say this. The body is structured so that things are not the same all the way around, okay? So how I address one movement, one set of joints, one muscle group in my body does not need to be identical to the way that I address another movement or muscle group or set of joints, okay? And this is where me having studied this stuff comes into play, okay? So there are some general rules that I can give you where in yin we generally want to practice in a relaxed way. We generally don't want to be aggressive. We generally don't want to pull ourselves down, but there are exceptions to that. So with this posture, generally, again, it's a generalization, so there will be exceptions out there. Generally, most people have so much tension here that there's very little risk of you actually stressing your spine too much. Okay, I said very little, I didn't say none. Okay, so if you happen to be very flexible, very bendy in this direction, and you're yanking yourself down, then yeah, possibly you could injure your spine here. But for a lot of people, even if they were aggressive, they were pulling and yanking, all they're doing is just stretching these muscles more. Could you overstretch the muscles? Could you pull muscles? Sure. That's true in any of these positions. There's always a risk, folks. I'll share with you a little story. I used to teach up in Woodstock, Georgia. It was a long drive for me because I live in Decatur. Anyway, I was teaching up there, and there was a woman who came in one day. She was a regular in my class. Let's switch sides. And this was a restorative class that I taught. I think it was on Sundays, Sunday in the morning or the afternoon. And she came in one day, and she seemed kind of flustered at the end of class. And she came up to me in a very kind of nervous, agitated voice, and she said, "Did you read the New York Times article about yoga?" And she was referring to this article that came out. It was a real clickbait title that it had, and the title was "How Yoga Can Ruin Your Body." Right? If what a great way to get clicks and hits, right? You just scare the bejesus out of people by telling them how something that they love to do can ruin their body. So this was an excerpt from William Broad's The Science of Yoga, which is actually a good book. But the way the New York Times used his information was they, took the most salacious thing, and he was talking about, injuries in yoga, and they just basically excerpt that part and then gave it that title. And of course, what were they looking for? They were looking for lots of hits, lots of people to, oh my gosh, you know. So this woman came to class, and what was interesting to me was she seemed disturbed by the very notion or idea that you could injure yourself doing yoga. Now, I truly hope none of you are under the illusion that you can't injure yourself doing yoga. You can injure yourself doing anything, folks. You can injure yourself getting out of bed in the morning. You can injure yourself taking a shower. You can injure yourself opening the fridge. You can injure yourself walking down the street, okay? You can injure yourself doing anything. There is no risk-free activity in this life, full stop, period. And that includes yoga. However, in general, when it comes to exercise, when it comes to things you can choose to do, yoga has a fairly good track record, okay? Generally speaking, yoga injuries are low, and very often they are easily recovered from. They're not things where people can't recover over time. Now, having said that, I do tell stories about people injuring themselves because one of the ways I help keep you safe is, again, to remind you, yes, you can injure yourself if you are too aggressive, if you approach this in the wrong way. But there's a lot of leeway there. So, you know, we don't have to be perfect. It's not like this tightrope that we're walking. We really have a lot of what I call the Goldilocks zone, right? There's a lot of range in which we can practice. Let's transition. A lot of range in which we can practice where we're going to be both safe and effective. Okay, frog pose. We take the knees as wide as they will go. Feet can be together or apart, flexed or pointed. You can stay on your hands or drop to your elbows. Feel free to rest your forehead on something like a bolster or a block. Give it a little extra support if it needs it. And again, the stretch is going to be in here, the groin or adductor muscles, okay? So yeah, we need to be realistic and we need to have our eyes open. That's the important thing. Again, I would not want to have a class full of people like this woman who think like that because yoga is quote unquote good for you, that you can't hurt yourself with it. It's a little bit like saying because food, you know, I'm eating healthy food, I can't choke, right? Those two statements don't go together, right? If I say, oh, I'm eating healthy now, so therefore I cannot choke on this food, that's incorrect, that's wrong, right? Oh, I'm eating healthy now, so I can't get sick. I can't overeat, that's wrong. Oh, this is medicine, so it makes me healthy no matter how much I take and when I take it. That is incorrect, that is wrong. So again, I'm belaboring the point a little bit today, and I think most of you get that. But honestly, having taught for so long, you never really know. You never really know what people's mindsets are and how much they're actually taking in. You know, I've had many times where students have come up to me after a class and they said, you say it in every class, but I didn't hear it until today, right? So a lot of times when we hear something, it's kind of in one ear and out the other ear. So my teachers, the great teachers, they all repeat things a lot because even though we hear it, we don't really hear it. It doesn't really register. So it's an important point. And it's one that I speak quite a bit about, the kind of that Goldilocks zone. Not too much, not too little. And most of us have a proclivity to lean one way or the other. So one thing you want to do in your practice is try and be objective and try and figure out, okay, what is my proclivity? What do I tend to do? Do I tend to overdo things? Am I always getting injured? Am I always exhausted? Am I always doing too much? Well, then why don't I try, at least in yoga, yoga's like your lab. It's kind of where you can experiment with different approaches, different attitudes to things and see the feedback that you get. So, maybe if you always are overdoing things, then you take a class, you say, you know what, I'm going to hang back. I'm not always going to push everything to its limit. I'm not always going to go, further or deeper or try and do more. All right, let's rest in child pose. Okay, so if I were to generalize, and again, this is a generalization, you need to check your own self. But for most modern Americans, the cultural tendency is to do too little when it comes to exercise. Okay? So if you're like not really sure, well, which is it for me? Chances are you're doing too little. Chances are you're not pushing enough. You're not going far enough. You're not doing as much as you could. You're kind of hanging back because of the discomfort that comes with physical activity, with exercise, with going to your edge. So if you're like, oh, I don't really know, then maybe try experimenting with doing a little bit more and then see what happens. Okay, because again, you want to listen to the feedback. All right, let's come up out of this and we'll come into a tabletop, do a little bit of the bear pose there. Bear's functioning as a counter stretch and also a warm up. So we're moving into back bending and we just want to see how things feel there. And then the down dog. Down dog lets us give our legs a little bit of love, a little bit of stretch. Work the kinks out there. Okay, right knee toward right wrist. Hips are down and back. And generally you want to come forward and down. The stretch is here. The glutes, this nice big muscle group. These are the biggest muscles in your body. Biggest muscle group as well. So you've got 10 muscles there. Okay? You don't want to feel it in your knee or your ankles. So be sure to position your right foot and your right knee in a way where you're minimizing the stress on that area while maximizing the stress here. So again, this concept of good stress, bad stress. We are trying to stress this big muscle group. Why? Because it can take it. And generally there's a lot of tension there. So generally we're going to benefit by releasing that tension. There's no real great benefit to holding a lot of muscle tension in your body. Okay, so releasing that tension is not just going to affect your body, it's going to affect you emotionally and mentally as well. I think I shared this story before, but I'll share it again today. It's been a minute. I used to work at a cafe, and I was working at that cafe when I had first discovered yin yoga. And I would do yin yoga every single day. And I felt amazing. I felt relaxed and happy. And I worked at this cafe, and it was a very busy cafe. So maybe you've been in a cafe before where it's like super chill, but this is not how this cafe was. People who live in Decatur, they like their coffee, and they want it fast, and they want it hot. They want it exactly how they want it. And if they don't get it how they want it, they're happy to freak out on you. So I worked at this cafe, and we would have just, hundreds of customers. And if you're working the register, you're dealing with, again, all these personalities, all these different people. So when I was working there, I was doing my yin yoga every day, and people would come in a nasty mood. They wanted their coffee, their day wasn't going well, the coffee wasn't hot enough, the barista who made it wasn't the one that they wanted, whatever it was. Well, I would come in with a genuine smile on my face, and I would be happy to be there, happy to be working, happy to be interacting with these grumpy people. This was how it was most days. Then I remember, for whatever reason, I don't remember the reason, but I missed about, I think, a week of doing my daily yoga practice, my yin practice. And I remember having this interaction with a customer, and immediately I felt it in my body. It was like the energy it's like the person was throwing their nasty mood on me. Like that's what, people who are in a bad mood are doing a lot of times. They're, oh, well, this isn't, like you can get the coffee you want. You don't have to get mad or pissy with people to get what you want. Let's switch sides. But generally what's happening when people are upset is, without maybe realizing it, they're kind of throwing that, they say misery loves company. So it's like they're trying to get you into the same state that they're in. Again, not usually intentionally. Usually people are doing this, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't really think of it that way. So for them, they're just expressing their emotions or their displeasure or whatever it might be. Anyway, normally when I was working this job, people would do that and it would just sort of go right through me. That's how it felt to me. I didn't even really feel it. It just was like, oh, I could smile back at them. I could be pleasant with them. Well, on this particular day, when after, again, about a week, I think, of missing my daily yin practice, I could feel it. It went right in and it got stuck. And it was very noticeable. And then the next person that came up, I was less able to give them a genuine smile. I had this kind of like emotional ick that was stuck in me. I could feel it. And I didn't know how to get rid of it. It didn't flow right through like it normally did. So I'm just sharing this with you. I'm not trying to get too woo-woo or whatever. There's ways we could explain it through the yoga tradition, how it views things, energy and emotions and thoughts and things like that. But without getting into all that, it's just a real life experience that I had where, when I wasn't doing my practice, how it affected me emotionally and mentally. So again, it's very different. I think we've all had this experience where you're interacting with somebody and they're smiling and they're saying all the right things, but the sense you get is they're not genuine. Okay, they're not genuine. Yes, they're smiling. Yes, they're saying all the right things, but you just feel it's not genuine. Okay? And then I think we've all had the experience of meeting someone who genuinely is pleased to see you, genuinely happy, a genuine smile. It's quite a different experience. Okay? Now, maybe if you're not very sensitive to that stuff, you like the fake smile or whatever, maybe it's all the same to you. But at least for me, I can spot a fake smile from a mile away. I can spot and feel when people aren't genuine. Let's go ahead and switch to the Sphinx or seal. Okay, I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying that is my experience. Prop ourselves up in the elbows. You can press yourself back for the seal. Okay, so you want to feel a little bit of compression in your back. Legs together, apart, head held up, drop forward, drop back, shoulders depressed or relaxed. Those are all the options, okay? So in terms of you being genuine, acting is a job, and acting takes energy. I'm not saying that you can't fool people. I'm not saying that you can't be in a bad mood and pretend like you're in a good mood and people will just kind of accept that. But I will say some people will know you're faking it. Maybe not everybody. I think a lot of people want to be fooled. I think a lot of people don't really want to know the truth. And when a lot of people ask you, how are you doing? They don't really want the true answer. They just want you to say, oh, I'm fine. I'm great. And then move on with your day. Well, anyway, in your experience, if you're faking it, if you're trying to pretend, it takes energy to do that. And you might think that that's what people want, and maybe some people do. But I would much prefer you be genuine. So if we're interacting and you're having a bad day, I would much rather you just say, you know what, I'm having a really tough day. But what most of us have been socially trained to do is put on a smile, say, I'm doing great. How are you? Right? It's pleasantries. It's not really a real question, how are you doing, for most people. So a lot of times when I interact with people and I feel like they're not being genuine, they'll say, oh, I'm fine. I'll be like, really? Are you really fine? Are you really okay? And a lot of the time they answer, well, no, actually, this happened at work, or actually, I'm really stressed out about this or that. So it doesn't take much. If you're actually interested in knowing how someone's doing, you can just follow up. But sometimes you get the sense that they're being genuine, they're being honest. But I have another memory from early on when I was teaching. I used to teach a lot of classes. I still do, but I used to teach an insane amount, as much as 25 classes a week. And I remember during this period, I came into a class, it was the evening, I'd probably already taught like 3 to 5 classes that day. And it was in the evening, and I walked in, and there were people, already in the room. There were people filing in. And a lot of yoga teachers, they teach part-time, and they think they're supposed to always be smiling. They think they're supposed to always be in a good mood because they're like, the representative of what yoga can do. Well, I don't care what you do. You're not always going to be happy. You're not always going to be smiling. That's just not legitimate. It's just not real. Let's go ahead and come on down. I'm not saying you can't greatly improve how often you genuinely smile, how often you generally feel good. Like I said, that story of when I was doing that yoga practice every day, I felt amazing. Like genuinely amazing. I didn't have to fake a smile. I didn't have to pretend like I wasn't annoyed by the customer's bad mood. I wasn't. But again, when I wasn't doing the practice, it stuck in me. I felt it. Okay, let's go ahead and do a little bit of the bear and down dog, counter stretch that. So to continue with my story, I remember walking into the room and people were coming in, and I had the thought, I probably should greet these people and smile and put on the show, right? Because that's what most people do. And that's what people expect. And they expect their yoga teacher to be in a good mood or whatever it is. All right, cattail is next. So we come down onto the belly, bring our left leg up, prop our head up on the right hand and elbow, take the bottom leg, move it back, and then we'll bend the knee, reach back, grab the foot. Okay, we're stretching the front of the thigh. Now we want to explore the twist today, so we're leaning that left shoulder back while leaving our hips where they are. Front leg straighter and closer to your face will be more intense, and bending it, dropping it down will be less intense. Keep your head in your hand if you want, or you can bring it to your forearm or onto a block onto the ground. So I remember thinking, having that thought, I should fake it. And then I had the thought, I was tired. It was like a long day. Like, if you don't know, teaching 4 or 5 yoga classes a day is a lot. Most yoga teachers don't do that. So I remember thinking that, and then I thought, you know what? Acting is a job. So if I add acting on top of teaching yoga, I'm probably going to burn out. And burnout for yoga teachers is very common, just FYI. So a lot of people think it's like a glamorous job. It looks fun, it looks exciting, it looks like you get a lot of attention. So people are drawn to it. They think that they want to be a professional yoga teacher. And then they get into the reality of it and they find it's nothing like what they thought it was. I think it's a little bit like maybe being what people think being a rock star is. I remember reading all these interviews with musicians, because I'm a musician, And I remember reading all these interviews with musicians where they're like, yeah, this life is nothing like what I thought it would be like. So, you know, there's just certain jobs that for whatever reason, they seem glamorous. They seem like, oh, wow, that would be the most amazing job. But they aren't necessarily. They, like any job, there's like good and bad that comes with it, right? There's a payoff um, that you have to make in order to do the job. Now, I happen to be cut out for this job. I love it. It is my passion. I would do it even if I didn't get paid. But that's not a lot of people, honestly. Not everyone is cut out to be a professional yoga teacher. So I remember thinking, if I want to do this, if I do not want to burn out, then I shouldn't add acting on top of what I'm already doing. I also had the thought that what I want to model for my students is being genuine. I would much rather be genuine than model that, oh, you always need to pretend like you're in a good mood, because I don't think that's healthy, honestly. Let's switch sides. I think it's much healthier as human beings that we be genuine. Now, it doesn't mean, you know, I do want to make this point. So we're switching sides, cattail. It doesn't mean we throw our bad mood or bad attitude on other people. That's what the people in the cafe were doing, right? They were in a bad mood, and so they were like trying to make me in a bad mood or take it out on me, use me as kind of like a punching bag because I was at a register at a coffee shop. So they could be nasty to me and they didn't have to worry about repercussions, right? I know people who do this. Service workers and, you know, people who work in retail, they'll just essentially use them as a human punching bag because they're having a bad day. And the way a lot of customer service works, at least in this country, is if you're a customer service employee, you can't say anything. You can't, you know, verbally, if someone's verbally abusing you, you're not allowed to verbally abuse that person back. You'll lose your job, right? That's the way a lot of corporate structure is. So you're basically powerless. You just have to let this person verbally abuse you and then wait until they leave. So I'm not suggesting that. Again, if I'm having a rough day, there's a difference between, you know, me not pretending like I'm having a great day, or when someone asks me, how you doing, being like, oh, I'm great, and smiling, you know, fake smile, versus just being honest, right? Not throwing it on them or lashing out or trying to make their mood match my mood, but instead just being genuine, honest. And I think that's a very important thing. So with those realizations, I really focused on just teaching the best class that I can, but also being very genuine about where I was at that time. You know, if I was having a hard time or a bad time. Now I'll say this. These practices in yoga have really helped me. I have taught after just really, really emotional things. So I lost my father when COVID happened, and I had to teach 2 classes the day that I lost him. Now, I had done a lot of grieving because it was something that was coming. We kind of saw the writing on the wall. So in the time before he actually passed away, I had done a lot of crying. I had done a lot of grieving. I had kind of emotionally already dealt with the loss by the time he actually physically passed. So when he physically passed away, there was not a lot of reaction. All that reaction had already kind of passed. And so I was able to show up and teach the classes that I was scheduled to teach. And my point is, it was genuine. Let's go ahead and come down. And we'll press back into saddle pose. Okay, so in saddle, You can sit on your heels. You can sit between your heels. You can sit on a block. You can have your knees together, which is harder. It's more intense. You can have your knees apart, which is easier, less intense. Your toes can point back or out to the side. That's neither more or less intense, but it may be for you, right? So you can try both. Most people are going to want their toes pointing back, but I'm in a minority, and you might be too, where it feels better to have the feet to the sides. What we're looking for is a stretch here in the front of our thighs. And then from there, if you don't feel that, you can begin lowering to your hands, elbows, crown of your head, bolster, or all the way onto your back. If you get all the way back, you might feel it in your back, and that's perfectly fine. Otherwise, you're going to feel it in the front of your thighs. So to wrap up, these postures and the way that they work the body and release tension from the body, again, this is something I've experienced firsthand. Now, again, what I'm talking about, that period I'm talking about, is a time when I was able to practice every single day. Most of us don't have the luxury. Okay, if you do, if you've got the time, I think all of you know that I post classes online. So if you had a hankering and you wanted to do yin yoga every single day, there's plenty of material out there. Okay, I have years of recorded classes on YouTube, on my Patreon page, that you can access. So you could do pretty much a different class like every single day if you wanted to, for weeks, if not months, maybe even a year. I don't even know how many there are up there now. Okay, so there's no excuses, like in terms of content and material. And I'm not the only teacher who's posting stuff online. So when I was doing that, you had to buy a DVD. There was no YouTube yoga classes, free classes, anything like that. So it's much easier today, if anything, to do that. But for most people, it's the time, actually. It's the time. It's not the content. It's not the instruction. They just don't have time to do that. But my experience with it is it makes a huge impact. And that's what yoga teaches. And again, this experience that I'm sharing with you, that comes from direct experience. I wasn't sitting there expecting to have that experience. Okay, so I wasn't like, oh, because I'm not practicing yoga, someone's going to say something and I'm going to get upset and I'm not going to be able to release that energy. No, I was as surprised as anybody, but I just noticed it. It was quite a stark contrast. So one of the things that yoga can do for us, and this is, I truly believe this, and if you practice enough, I think you'll experience it for yourself, is it can make us a better version of ourselves, our best selves. When I was practicing like that and people were showing up and again, they were not their best self, I was able to meet them with the best version of myself. I didn't reflect back their negativity, right? They would throw something negative at me with words or just energy or attitude, and it would just go right through me, and I could give to them what they needed in terms of, having a pleasant attitude. And I wasn't overly, right? We've again all had experience with people who are overly nice, and it's annoying sometimes when you're in a bad mood, right? So it wasn't like that. I wasn't like throwing it on thick and, oh, yes, sir, I'm so happy to, help you, sir. Anything like that. It wasn't an act. It was genuine, you could say, love for another individual, appreciation for another human being. All right, let's come on out of that. All right, let's pull the legs in and give them a little squeeze, shake it out. And this sequence is a little shorter. So what I'd like to do today is lead you through a little body scan. Okay, in yoga, this is called Yoga Nidra. It's very good for stress reduction, for helping with anxiety, and other things like that. Now, usually Yoga Nidra is done for about 30 or 40 minutes. It can bring you into a very deep hypnagogic state that allows for very deep healing on an emotional, mental, physical level. We don't have 40 minutes today, right? But we do have about 5 extra minutes. So let's take advantage of that. What I recommend is laying back on your back, a bolster under your knees. So the bolster is the big pillow that we use in yoga. Hopefully you have one. If not, you can take a couch pillow or something, put it under your knees. I do recommend that because most people are more comfortable with their back flat. And when your knees are bent, that's what's going to happen. Now, I do not recommend a big pillow under your head. I know a lot of people want to do that, but you really ideally want your head and your heart on the same plane. Okay, so we don't want the head way up like that, which is how a lot of people would position themselves. We want the heels apart comfortably, palms up, head centered, chin tucked in slightly. Now, Yin Yoga and Yoga Nidra are two things that I have very advanced certifications in. So I don't do Yoga Nidra with you normally, but I have a very, very high level of training in it. Okay? So today we're going to just do a little body scan, a short body scan. And what this does is it helps, again, relax the mind, release tension. So make yourself very comfortable laying on your back, knees supported. And once you make your adjustments, try and commit to about 5 minutes of stillness. So again, if your dog comes over, starts licking your face, try to avoid the temptation of petting them or interacting with them. See if you can just play dead, right? That's what Shavasana is, corpse pose. It's literally playing dead. So see if you can play dead for about 5 minutes. And then with this short version, there's not as much of a problem, but many people fall asleep. And it's okay if you do, but ideally we remain awake throughout this entire practice, okay? So go ahead and make yourself very comfortable. I'm going to turn off my camera because you really don't need to see me for this. And then laying on your back, let's take a nice deep breath in and we'll exhale with a deep sigh. So really let that go. Feel your body releasing tension, your mind releasing any thoughts or images, words that are there. And then let's do that again. We'll take a really full breath in and let's exhale with a deep sigh. All right, now I'd like you, without any movement, you're just going to move your attention down to your toes and try and feel all 10 toes without moving them. Now let's move our attention to the ankles. Same thing, we're not going to move, we're just going to feel the ankles. And then the knees. The pelvis. Abdomen. The chest. Fingers. Palms. Wrists. elbows, shoulders, your throat, chin, face, your head, the back of your head, both shoulder blades, your back, the buttocks, the back of your thighs, both calves, the heels, and the soles of both feet. Now the entire body.